Hey everybody, Mack and I are super excited to be here with you on a Friday.
We are. We're going live on LinkedIn today and YouTube.
And YouTube.
Our new Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel.
Yep.
So we're going to have basically a conversation in front of you, but we'll teach you some stuff. But we also just going to ask each other some questions about the things we're going to talk to you about.
Yeah. So you wanted to do the topic today on a recent post that I did maybe one day this week about what we do becomes who we are.
And that was good, Ria. What made you post that? What were you thinking when you wrote?
Well, I think that this is partly inspired from a section in the Ladder of Influence, because so much of the time you and I get questions about leadership and personal growth, and a lot of times people say, well, what are the things I need to do, right? And in the Ladder of Influence, I talk about there are some specific things that you can do to make sure that you are growing, but a lot of times what most people don't understand is that when they change who they are, that's going to automatically change what they do, right? And so it also works the other way to some degree, that the things that we do influence who we are becoming, because they affect us. So it goes both ways in terms of, as we grow and change who we are, that's going to change what we do, but also we have to change the things that we do in order to help us become the person that we want to become.
And we meet a lot of people who want to get better, but then they don't do anything, right? They get excited maybe while we're in the room or while we're on the phone talking to them. Like this week, I've probably been on the phone probably 10, 15 hours talking to different people around the country and even around the world outside of the U.S. I do a lot of that when we're home, as you know, because I go in the office and shut the door and I don't come out for hours. But what stops people from actually taking action, you think? I mean, when they're fired up, we see them, we talk to them, they gung-ho, and then either if they're on the phone, a lot of times we don't hear from them anymore. Or when we do, they still haven't done anything. Or we meet them in person and they're going to call us and tell us what they've been doing, and nobody does anything.
Well, some people do, but it's rare, because people often want the results without doing the work. And that's the thing about this concept, right? You have to do the work. You have to put the sacrifice in. You have to be willing to do the work in order to become the person you want to become, so that you can achieve the things that you want to achieve. And a lot of people just don't want to do the work. They want the results, right? You and I talk to a lot of people who aspire to be a speaker, or people who want to write a book and they want to, be speaking on stage, but they don't necessarily want to do the work to have to become the person who can do those things.
Yeah.
And that's where the growth comes in, is saying, I've got to grow me in order to get to that next level, right? Who I am has got me the results that I'm getting right now in this moment.
And a lot of people just want to raise.
That's true.
They especially these days with everything like skyrocketing.
Just want the money, right? I mean, it's the way it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, what would you recommend? Just somebody doing some kind of work. Doesn't matter if they're blue collar folks or white collar folks. They're just, maybe they've been stuck in their pay, or they're tired of getting just the regular 2 or 3% raise at the end of the year that kind of everybody gives. Some companies don't do it. I've been in some. I remember going in one company, they hadn't given raises in 9 years.
Oh man, that's terrible.
But we got serious about lean, and then folks started getting raises every year because we started improving their processes, increasing their profits, and all that kind of stuff. So what do you think? A small, how would someone become intentional? Change their income, change their position in a company. What's some things they could do?
I think the number one thing that you have to do is get intentional about your growth, right? What is your growth plan personally and professionally look like? And I mean, we've talked about it a zillion times, but it's worth repeating. To me, the best way to grow personally and professionally is reading, for a couple of reasons. Even if you don't like to read, like Matt doesn't like to read, but you do read, even though you don't love it. But I mean, I like to read. And so, but one reason that I like to read is because I learn so much better if I'm reading. Now, I mean, maybe you just absolutely don't like to read, can't stand to read. And so maybe you're an audio listener, like a podcast or a video like this. And that's certainly another way to grow. To me, the benefit of reading, though, is you can slow down and take it at your own pace. And so you're able to absorb the content, reflect on it. What does it mean? How does it apply to me? And that, to me, that just is one of the best ways to internalize new concepts.
And I got to add to that, because I talk to a lot of people about reading, and a lot of people who are new to reading, even especially new to reading personal growth, personal development, leadership development type books. And those folks, a lot of times it's about how fast can they turn the page once they start reading, and I tell people, when I read, I read the first paragraph of a chapter. A lot of times as I'm reading sentences, I got to read, then I got to back up and see what sentence led to this sentence, and then what sentence comes next. I'm real slow. I'm methodical about reading. So as I'm reading a paragraph, I'm going back and forth, back and forth. Then when I read the next paragraph, a lot of times I have to go back up, read the previous paragraph, because I'm trying to figure out what was it in this paragraph that led the person to write the next paragraph. So I'm trying to tie it all together, because sometimes a single sentence or a single paragraph, you're not getting the whole picture. It'd be like if I went out and zoomed in on a picture of your car, you ain't seeing the whole picture. Then if I moved over here and zoomed in, and I moved over there and zoomed in, you still ain't seeing the whole picture. But if I zoom out, and when I say zoom out, for me, when I'm reading, zooming out means I'm going back and forth looking at the whole thing. And it takes me forever to read, but I'm reading to learn. I ain't reading to turn pages. So that's a big key for people to understand.
Sure.
These kind of books are not the same as reading a book for entertainment or enjoyment. It's just like zipping through a story or something like that. There may be a story in there, but a lot of times if I read a story, I definitely got to go back and I got to see what came before that led up to the story. Why is this person telling me that story? What are the principles that go along with the story? And then usually there's some principles after the story that I have to go back. So I'm just a slow reader, but I learn at a very deep level, I think, because of that.
I was working on recording a podcast this morning, and I was talking about some of the books that have changed my level of awareness or really changed the course of my leadership journey. And, just a couple that come to mind: Leadership Gold by John Maxwell. And the reason that one impacted me so much is because of the marble story.
We talk about it all the time, right? I did a newsletter on that on my LinkedIn newsletter not too long ago.
And then like the 5 Levels of Leadership, that's another book that I can reflect on and go, ooh, I was someone different after reading that, but I had to go read it in order to grow. And then that starts to change what we do. And I know 5 Levels of Leadership is one of your top leadership books as well.
Yeah, that one, that's powerful. That's my number 2 book of all time. 7 Habits being number 1. The 5 Levels of Leadership by the 7 Habits by Stephen R. Covey, my number 1 book. And I've been reading, if you don't know me, folks, I've been reading literally every day since 2008, when I discovered content from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People in the form of a 1-hour audio highlight. But my second favorite is the one Ria's talking about, the 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. And go ahead and round it off with number 3 is The Speed of Trust by Stephen M. R. Covey, the son of Stephen R. Covey that wrote the 7 Habits. And, those books have changed us. But this little book right here, Ria, Blue Collar Leadership, Leading from the Front Lines, I've had so many people tell me that's their book. That's
their
book.
Number 1 book.
Yeah, that's like it's like the 7 Habits for me. Blue Collar Leadership, Leading from the Front Lines is that book for them, because it really helped do what we're talking about today. That book is all about focusing on self. How do I lead myself well so that I can become a high impact individual? Because if you want to launch like a rocket, that's the first thing you got to be. You got to be a high impact individual. Second thing you got to be is you got to be a high impact team player. High impact individual means I work well by myself, and in relation to others, I'm okay. Being a high impact team player means I work well by myself and I work well with others. Because a lot of people work well by themselves, but they don't work well with others. And then another level is, and for the teamwork, I got Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork, 30 Traits of High Impact Players. And then the third book that kind of wraps up those 3 things is Blue Collar Leadership and Supervision, Unleash Your Team's Potential. And that book is, if I'm leading a group of high impact individuals, high impact team players, the supervision book is, you're the kind of leader, helps you become the kind of leader people want to follow. Even if you're not a formal authority leader, you got to lead like what I teach in that book. So, when we talk about what we do becomes who we are.
Right.
And when I was about 25 years old or so, 26, 25, somewhere in there, 1995.
How long ago?
Hey, it was a long time, Ria. Long time ago. And so I started my manufacturing career in 1988, graduated high school in 1987. But back in 1995, somebody I didn't know come in and just expressed belief in me. It was an engineer, an industrial engineer. I was working the night shift. And that person come in and was doing a time study because I was most productive in my work cell. And basically they come in, did this time study. But while they were there, they were a high impact individual. They were a high impact team player. They were a high impact leader. I couldn't articulate this back then,
Sure.
but they didn't just come do the time study like a lot of engineers do, and not connect with me as a person. But he connected with me. He believed in me. He told me about the plant manager believing in me, and told me that the plant manager said if I'd go get some additional education that I could move up in the organization. And so I told him that wasn't never going to happen. I hated school.
You weren't interested.
I wasn't interested in school, going back to school. I barely graduated high school, that sort of thing. But what's interesting, though, the very next, I think back then we called them quarters. Today is semesters, but back then it was quarters. Very next quarter, I was enrolled. And it took me 6 or 7 years to get my bachelor's degree. My associate's degree. And then I joined into an accelerated bachelor's program. But basically, I had to change my values and start investing in myself. I learned from John Maxwell a long time ago, if you want to invest in yourself, why should anyone else?
I think your story there is just a great example of, you did value, right, going to college and going back to school to get a degree. And so that was something that you did, right? You changed what you did. And then over time, that began to help you grow to a different level of awareness in your career. So it's a good example of you did something differently and you became someone different as a result.
Yeah, in Blue Collar Leadership Leading from the Front Lines, I share in there how I got promoted 14 times in my 20-year career. But it was because I became very intentional. Mm-hmm. And you got on the screen there, bluecollarleadership.com/download.
Yeah, so you can find a lot of free chapters from.
Yeah, you can go read the first 5 chapters of that book, first 5 chapters of the teamwork book, first 5 chapters of the supervision book. And you don't have to go. We ain't here to sell you anything, but we're here to provoke thought and raise awareness. And there's hundreds of pages of free content there. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to subscribe to anything. You don't have to put your email. We ain't going to blast you and spam you and all that sort of stuff. We're just going to help you if you want to help yourself to actually to take some action. But as soon as I started school, I started getting promoted. I hadn't graduated I didn't have a degree, mm-hmm. But when the leaders started to see every quarter I'm turning in my grades, and for the most part, they were all A's. So they saw I was applying myself. Then I started getting opportunities. I didn't have to have the degree to get the opportunity.
I had to show initiative.
I had to take initiative, show initiative, yeah, and I had to engage in developing myself. They were not developing us. A lot of companies today are not developing the workforce. So sure. Unless you go develop yourself, you ain't gonna get any development. But a lot of people just get the job and then they hope and wish something's gonna happen. Hoping and wishing ain't a good strategy.
Well, and there again, so many people I know who I've talked to who they want to change something in their life. Maybe it's their health, but they're not willing to give up some of the junk food that tastes so good.
I know all about it, Ria.
And
I'm doing it right now.
And it's a sacrifice and it is hard. But, maybe it's their career or they want to start a business, but they don't want to put the work in to make that a success. And, maybe it's having more influence in a personal relationship, but they don't want to take the time to go read a relationship book, right? And so again, we kind of come back to what you do is going to change who you are. And when you change that, that's going to start to impact and influence the results in your circumstances.
Yeah, when you're talking about health, I'm working on that because I don't want to get on the medicines that the world wants you to be on. I'm fighting that. So, and I'm trying to lose some weight, stay off the blood pressure medicine, to stay off the cholesterol medicine. And a lot of people would say, Mac, you ain't even overweight. Well, it's all relative. I ain't comparing myself to society. Most of society is extremely overweight. And if I was comparing myself to them, no, I don't have to lose any weight. I'm good compared to them. But this is what a lot of people do. They always compare themselves to everyone else, regardless of what the focus is. Like right now, I'm using the example of health and my weight. but I'm comparing myself to what weight should I be?
Yeah. And
Not what weight am I relative to everybody else's weight. What weight should I be if I was truly healthy? That's my goal. That's my target.
And I think that's an important point, because you're not looking out at everyone else from a place of judgment, right? You're just saying, for me and where I want to be in my journey, I need to make some adjustments, right? And so that's an individual decision. Everyone has to decide where they want to go, and then they have to decide what they want to do to get there, and what they're willing to sacrifice to get there, and what they're not willing to sacrifice.
Yeah, and some folks may not understand why we talk about all this personal stuff when we talk about leadership, right? But personal development is the foundation for leadership development. Anybody who's just who dives into what we do, the content we provide, and their goal is to dive into how do I lead other people. Like if they skip the front lines book and they skip the teamwork book, and they're like, I'm a boss, I want to learn how to lead people, I need to go straight to the supervision book, or I need to go to your 10 values book, or your leadership gems book.
Yep.
A lot of people want to go to how do I lead other people. Well, the first thing you got to do is lead yourself well.
That's the most difficult person in the world.
And you got 100% control, 100% influence over you. And I promise you, you're just like us. You know things you should have already done, things you could have already done, but you haven't done it. That's how hard it is to lead ourselves.
Yeah.
It's just like people who want to lose weight. A lot of times they make an excuse. They start making excuses.
You can make an excuse, or you can make something happen, but you can't make something happen while you're making an excuse.
Yep. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to starve myself. You don't have to starve yourself. You ain't even got to stop eating. You got to start eating something different. Right.
Well, and I think for me, that's the power of small changes, right? Because a lot of times we want something different. We want things to be drastically different. And so we think drastic measures, but we're not bought in to the drastic measures. And so we end up throwing the towel in, so to speak. So it's small changes, right? It's the power of just a little bit better, right? And, I've shared the example before that, when I started trying to eat healthier for a little while, it was like, well, maybe I can't give up cheese, because that's cheese is like my favorite thing. Most of my favorite thing.
You're my favorite thing, Ria.
Well, I meant to eat.
Oh.
But, so first it was like maybe I could have less cheese, or maybe I could substitute something that would kind of satisfy that, right? And then small changes, and over time it got to be easier and easier to step away from some of that, right? Or cheese crackers, or whatever it is. My point here is that growth is the same way. If we'll just grow a little bit every day and every single day, right, that will compound over time, and it becomes easier and easier and easier to accomplish what we want to accomplish in life.
Yep. Whatever level you're at, whether you're an entry level person or you're a top leader, if you want to become a better leader, pull out that mirror, figure out what you have to do. Like I quit drinking alcohol in 2012. That's just a personal choice. I don't judge what other people do. They welcome to do whatever they want to do. But at one point, that was what I needed to do to get better. 2018, I stopped drinking sodas. So, I don't think any worse about somebody drinking a soda than somebody drinking alcohol, because I don't drink either one of those things. I started drinking water, and my health started improving from both of those things. But also from the alcohol, when I made that decision, I saved time, I saved money, I saved headaches, I saved being tired, the next day, not as much energy. I saved all kind of things. But what I did was different than what a lot of people do. Is I took all the savings and then started investing in myself, reading.
Sure.
We tell people this is your office, those are your books, and that's just a few of them. You probably got 10 times that many, or maybe 100 times that many you've actually read, because you read a lot of books.
I do.
Right. You read like crazy.
Well, I like to learn. I like to get a nugget. If I just get one nugget from every single book that I read all year long, then I think differently next year.
Yep.
And just one quote out of every book.
Yeah, people don't realize, a lot of people think that I remember a lot about a book, but I don't. I remember a little about a lot of books.
Well, no, that works too.
And all the stuff that I say, the quotes that I share, when you hear me speaking, they're just up there. They're just stuck. Things just stick. So what else you want to talk about today?
Well, as you were talking, I was just reflecting, there again, we have to internalize the concepts, because that's what helps us grow. Because you can't change who you are in a moment, right? That is something that you can change over time, with time, but instantly in 1 second, you're not going to be different just because you read a good principle, right? You have to go apply it and go, oh, wow.
Oh, I got to share something. So you give me a second.
Okay, share it. Go ahead.
So what Ria's talking about, I started watching, if you follow me enough, I started watching Myron Golden's videos a while back.
Yeah.
And I've always said this, but the way he said it was just a little bit sharper and a little bit clearer. So I've kind of adopted his way of saying it. But what Ria's talking about, when you read a book or you watch a video or you go to training, you go to a seminar, somebody's in person, what you have to know, and you've got to know this, like right now, whatever we're talking about, if you haven't mastered this, applying this in your life, like right now, you're only learning about what we're talking about. When you read a book, you're only learning about what's in that book. When you listen to a speaker speak, you're only learning about what they're speaking about. So when you hear it, when you start mining the nuggets, the golden nuggets, I say, and you're pulling out those nuggets, and then you start trying to apply what you're learning, you still haven't learned it.
Right.
You're still learning about it. You're learning about how to implement it and how to apply it. The key is, until you master it, where you don't really have to think about it, it's subconscious. Until you can apply these principles in your life from a subconscious level, you hadn't truly learned it. You're still learning about it. It would be just like whatever work you do. If you come into a room and told me all about the work you do and how you do it and what I need to do, I ain't learned how to do it. I've just learned about it. And then you go take me to where you actually do the work, and I start actually trying to do the work. I'm going to flop around all over the place because I don't know it like you know it. You know it subconsciously. I'm consciously trying to learn all the steps and what to do, and when this happens, what to do. So until I've mastered all of that at the level you have, assuming you've mastered it, I haven't learned it until that happens.
Yeah, we've got a quote here from Carlos Cody. It says, "Mine the nuggets, apply the nuggets, and become the nuggets."
Hey, I like that, Carlos. That's good stuff right there. Mind the nuggets, apply the nuggets, become the nuggets. And I'd say, relative to what Carlos is saying right there, become the nuggets is when it's internalized. It's part of who you are.
That's one of the reasons you and I did started doing some video courses online training, because it doesn't matter how awesome you are, and you are awesome, but even though I'm biased because I'm married to you, but it doesn't matter how awesome, a one-time presentation or a keynote or something like that is. You and I both know that transformation doesn't happen in one day. And so it's what happens after the training or the seminar or the conference or the event. It's what do you do after that, right? Do you continue the growth journey? And so many times leaders want to bring us in and get us to inspire the people, and we can do that. But that's not going to transform anybody just because we're there for a 2-hour leadership training, right? It's how do you continue the daily growth afterward? And, there are a lot of leaders who realize just the importance of that regular continued growth. And, I like to use the analogy. I'm like, you don't have to brush your teeth all day, but you have to brush your teeth every day, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. And so,
yeah, we were talking about that in Texas last week with Jason Denham and the Kilgore team.
We were.
And I told him, yeah, you don't have to brush them all day. I mean, do you know anybody that brushes their teeth 12, 14, 16 hours a day? Probably not, because you don't have to, but you do have to get in there. And I said out there, you got to get in there and hit them a lick. And they all thought that was funny. You seem to still think that's funny.
I don't know. Hit them a lick. Like, I don't even know exactly what that
means. The blue collar
means.
folks know, Ria. I'm telling you, they know what I'm talking about. But anyway, you put up on the screen there about our new online academy, and Jason just sent us a picture yesterday.
Yes, that was such an awesome.
Oh, it was awesome.
Awesome picture. Awesome.
It was a picture of Scott Gronwald, maybe is how to say his last name.
The first one from their team to actually go through the entire course.
Yeah, Jason signed up his company and his team. They got access to the Blue Collar Leadership Academy, where we got 4 courses. Basically, we're standing right here, but we're teaching very intentionally.
Sure. And
you got a handout. So we just want to create awareness. We ain't here to sell you that, but we do want to create awareness about that. Go check out bluecollarleadership.com/academy if you want to learn about those online courses. But Jason's going to use those courses. He's subscribed to the All Access, so they get All Access every month. Everybody has the ability to tune into that. When they get done, they get to print off a certificate. Jason gets a copy of it.
Yep.
And that picture was him handing that certificate to Scott. So that was really awesome.
One of the Blue Collar Leadership coffee mugs.
We took them 3 out when we went to speak. So the first 3 that finished, Scott may get all 3. He may do the next one and the next one. He was on fire when we were out there.
There's somebody pretty close to getting the next one. So I'm
okay.
not going to name any names, but
you can see the dashboard.
There's somebody really close to getting that.
And just like Jason can see the dashboard when they're out there doing it.
Yeah.
But one thing that Jason's going to do with that, just to brag on Jason a minute, because he's a phenomenal leader at the VP level, because he's got all access to every course every month, basically nonstop until he unsubscribes. He's going to use those courses, especially the Blue Collar Leadership Leading from the Front Lines course, the book that we talked about. We got the course for that book. Every new employee, regardless of their position, title, or rank, part of their orientation, they're going to have to go through that 8-hour course. So those folks will be getting certified during one of the days of the, not certified, but they'll get their certificate of completion during one of their days of orientation before they go join the team. And something else cool he's going to do is the blue collar folks in the construction industry, which he's in electrical construction, they put a lot of stickers on their hard hats. And he's going to get a blue collar leadership sticker, and it's going to have like a number. Eventually, there's going to be 15 courses in there. So it'll almost be like wearing rank, your leadership, not really rank, more like a medal or badge or something, but it's going to be a sticker, and it'll have a number of how many courses they've completed. So anybody on a job site can walk around and they'll know who's actually invested in themselves. It'll be out there for everybody to see.
Yeah, I love that.
It's going to be pretty cool.
And it does help when there is almost a visual or a scoreboard or something that you can say, I'm measuring growth, right? We measure the things that are truly important.
I know if I was there walking around, I wouldn't be wanting to walk around without a sticker on my helmet. If I did have a sticker, I wouldn't want it to have a number 1 or 2 in it.
Well,
not when other folks are getting intentional about it.
Yeah.
So Kilgore's investing in the people, but then they've got to take their own time to invest in themselves, because it's not going to be mandatory for the ones who are already there. It will be for the new folks. The ones who are already there, they're going to have to invest in themselves and go through it. But Scott's doing it. He's leading the way. That picture is probably going to inspire some folks to get serious too.
Yeah. So closing thoughts on what we do becomes who we are, because it's we're coming up on half an hour and probably some people have to go back to work.
They do. We got things to do. We got another course. We're going to be our next course, video course. We're going to make going to be on change happens, leading yourself and others through change. But I heard Myron Golden say the other day that, and I love this quote. It's one of those quotes I was telling you. I mined the nugget. I didn't have to write it down. I did write it down because I file all my quotes, but I didn't remember it because I wrote it down. I remembered it because I heard him say it. It meant something.
Right.
And I just love it. I've been saying it ever since. And that's another way I internalize it. I share it. I share things a lot, and then it's there for sure. And then I go get another nugget and I share it a lot, and then it's there for sure. And then subconsciously I'll pull it out whenever I need to. But he said, and this is a big one, if you're taking notes or you just want to think on it, you might want to hit pause afterward. But he said, blame is the most popular excuse. It's somebody else's fault. Wherever you at in life, it ain't nobody else's fault. You went through some stuff, right, Ria? Mm-hmm. You were sexually abused by your father from age 12 to 19. You got a TEDx talk on that.
Yep.
And you got a great lesson on resilience. Share the your TEDx talk link, because some people might want to go see that, especially if they don't know your background. But a lot of people who go through what you went through, that they could blame their past experience, their circumstances, their upbringing, but you didn't do that. I mean, I've been with you since you escaped that situation, and I've watched you climb and launch like a rocket. We always say, keep climbing.
Yep, keep climbing.
You ain't ever stopped. I've been with you now for 24 years. So I'm just very proud of Ria. She's a living example and model of all the stuff she talks about. So once you know her story, if you go watch that 7-minute TED Talk, every single thing else she says that she writes, it means something entirely different if you know that she has lived it to an extremely high degree, considering what she suffered through as a young person.
Well, you are a little biased because you're married to me, but thanks.
I'm glad to be married to you. You're an exceptional human being, Ria.
Oh, you are too, right? Who we are is who we attract. So, all right, folks and friends.
And make sure these videos will be stored on our Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel.
Uh-huh. And
you're putting out more videos there. We're putting out quite a few out there, right?
Yep. So we have a new YouTube channel for the Blue Collar Leadership. So you can find it on youtube.com / Blue Collar Leadership.
Yep. Lots of free content through our newsletters on LinkedIn, our podcast, and now our Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel.
Yep. All right, folks.
All right. Y'all have a great weekend. Talk to you next time. Keep climbing.